All right, all I got to do is change one setting on the live stream. Welcome, guys. So TJump had a debate. Steve reacted to TJump's debate. I'm interested in hearing what happened at TJump's debate that made Steve react to TJump's debate. I'm interested, so let's go ahead and do this right now. Let's go ahead and get started. Thank you guys for coming. If you do jump in, appreciate y'all. Atheism, debate, reaction, live stream, talk show, late night talk show, YouTube, live stream. Okay, those are good tags, and we are in. I got my chat right here. Looks like JoJo, Roland, Stewart, and Niji are all strolling in. Now, we're not just going to be reacting to Steve McRae's breakdown of TJump's debate and TJump's debate over here on YouTube. We are also going to be playing a video game called Brutal Doom. Now, this isn't just any old Doom game. This isn't some old game from the 90s. Doom released their source engine to hackers, and those hackers redid the entire game. This game is probably better than the Doom that released in 2016. That's arguable. Let's get this started. If you would like to super chat or PayPal or join the channel, you're basically the only thing that's keeping us going. Considering I just worked my buns off uploading just to have my last upload that had to do with a gaming world record get demonetized. No curse words, nothing. So I submitted for review, and I guarantee it'll come back with a green monetization sticker after it does horrible being restricted. But that's life. Who cares? If you do like my work, though, you might want to super chat, super sticker. You might want to join the channel, because honestly, it's the only thing keeping this show going at this point. With all of the times we get demonetized every time we do anything.
Even the existence of a god.
So TJump is going to be discussing his atheism to some, and he's going to be like debating somebody. I have a very unique. I'm going to have to explain this, because a lot of people are going to be like, "Why are you doing this, UNIRock? You never talk about God or anything like that." And there's typically a reason for that. You see, I was an atheist most of my entire life, and I was one of those atheists, kind of like TJump. I wasn't as annoying as TJump, and I wasn't moralist like TJump is. I don't back hardcore thieves, even after I find out they're hardcore thieves like TJump likes to. But I was an atheist. I hung out with atheists. Me and my friends all like would debate about it and talk about it. We thought we were like the smartest dudes ever and shit. That's how I used to be. I'd say after I joined the military and after a few years, I started to think of things just a little differently, and now I believe in a creator. I look at the world like any other atheist does, and I still hold all my thoughts as an atheist, but I do think now I've realized that whereas I thought there was enough evidence to say that we know why we're here on this world, we've got evolution, we've got these other things, I realized very quickly that, that doesn't mean there's not a God. And I just resigned. Some people call me an agnostic, where I say we don't know, so how do we know? But I mean, when it comes to the universe, when it comes to our natural world and the observation science that we take, 100% I'm with you. I, though, tell you that there's nothing out there that disproves a God, and there's nothing out there that proves a God. That's the weird mystery of this world, right? So that's where I sit. So I'm going to have a unique reaction to TJump. I'm not going to be reacting as a guy who believes or as a guy who's a, crazy religious dude or something. I'm reacting to it based off of, I think it's going to be a unique reaction. And then Steve McRae is actually streaming right now, and he's breaking it down. And I thought, I want to see what's going on here. So I have hidden what we are doing behind the facade of playing a video game, though. So just keep that in mind. We might not get a lot of people in here chilling, because they're going to be like, is Uni playing a video game? Well, we're not hanging out if he's playing a video. I don't blame people that don't like watching video games for not coming and watching video games. But we're not here watching a video game. That's not what we're doing. We're going to react to a video. We're playing the video game so that I'm not bored out of my mind while we're
If you assert...
It's all yours, Olive. Hey, everybody. Tonight we're debating the definition of atheism and its consequences, and we're starting right now. Without further ado, TJump will start things off for us, and Converse will go next.
G. Willikers back,
All right,
man. I
so
can't wait.
we're debating the definition of atheism and its consequences. The way I define atheism is there is no reason to believe in the existence of a God.
That's not atheism. There's no reason to believe in a God? I don't know. Could you say that's atheism? I thought atheism was just people who don't believe in a God. I could be wrong there, so.
The classical philosophical definition is that there is no God. It's the positive claim there is no God.
UNIRock 2 just popped over to let you know Chocolate Moose Gaming offering an invite for you to visit him on D Live tonight if you wish. He misses you. I've never streamed with Chocolate Moose Gaming, but I'll take a quick look.
God, and my position is a neutral claim that does not hold the same burden of proof. I'm not claiming there is no God. I'm claiming there are no reasons to believe in a God. So,
wow, that's a really big claim there. That's a massive claim. There are many reasons to believe in a God, and there are many reasons not to. How can you say there are no reasons to believe in a God? Are you saying that for you, just when it comes to you, TJump, maybe I can understand what you're saying there. I don't see it. I'm searching for Chocolate Moose Gaming, R-Top. I don't see him. It's not coming up in my search. Yeah, I don't see him. Yeah, sorry, buddy. Oh, wait, here he is. Yeah, there we go. Oh, yeah, what's he doing over there? What's he playing? Oh, he's playing Dishonored. You know what? I'll get with Chocolate Moose sometime. Hi, Chocolate Moose. Good to see you, buddy. Sorry, I'm busy today. I'll hit you up when I'm not busy, though. Okay. Anyway, so TJump just made a pretty big claim. He said that there are no reason to believe in a God. I can see how there could be many reasons for many people to believe in a God. So it seems like a very insane claim to make, but let's let him talk.
well, the burden I hold is to show that the reasons don't hold up or that there are no reasons. I do not hold the burden to show God does not exist. So that's the difference between the two claims. And mine can actually be more generally interpreted as the position that everything starts off as imaginary until demonstrated otherwise. So if you assert something exists.
I don't think so. What now? Everything starts off as imaginary until demonstrated otherwise. That is very ludicrous. That's just ludicrous. So the Eiffel Tower is imaginary until I fly over there and visit it? It's just ludicrous.
Like a God. That thing is imaginary, as in it does not exist, anything other than something in our heads, until demonstrated otherwise. And in that case, it would actually be in line with the philosophical definition where it attempts to meet the burden of proof where God does not exist by saying that anything that is asserted without evidence doesn't exist until demonstrated otherwise. And that just fits the general definition, and I'll just give the floor to my converse contender.
Okay. So since he started off with the definition he accepts, he actually gave the definition that I accept for atheism. I'll just read it to you from the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. Atheism is typically defined in terms of theism. Theism, in turn, is best understood as the proposition something that is either true or false. It is often defined as the belief that God exists, but here belief means something believed. It refers to propositional content of belief, not to an attitude or psychological state of believing. This is why it makes sense to say that theism is true or false and to argue for or against theism. If, however, atheism is defined in terms of theism, and theism is the proposition that God exists, and not the psychological condition of believing that there is a God, then it follows that atheism is not the absence of a psychological condition of believing that God exists. The A in atheism must be understood as negation instead of absence, as not instead of without. Therefore, in philosophy at least, atheism should be construed as the proposition that God does not exist, or more broadly, the proposition that there are no gods. Now, I know that Tom mentioned that that is how philosophers use the term. But what I would point out starting off here is just that if we're going to have a philosophical conversation, we should start with the terms that the professional philosophers lay out. For example, in a debate that Tom had with I'm sorry, I believe his name was Drew. He says, what is moral progress? And Tom says, moral progress is just the theory that we progress past where our morals were in the past. And he said, what are we progressing toward? And he goes, no, it's just how philosophers define it in the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. So that is how it's defined. So that's it. You just disagree with them. And so what I would do is I would just put the shoe on the other foot and say, why should I accept what you're saying instead of what they're saying if we're going to have a philosophical conversation?
Well, in the context of atheism, since it's describing my position, I get to define it however I want. So when I say atheism is, and this is how I define it, I'm just saying this is the position and what I mean by atheism. Whether you accept it or not is irrelevant. If you don't accept it, you'll just be strawmanning my position. So the reason you should accept it is so that we can have an honest conversation.
Wow. What now? Really? How about you use instead of your funky definition of atheism, why don't you use the commonly accepted definition?
Conversation where you accurately represent my position. Whether or not you think it's correct or there's
Alan, this is called Brutal Doom 3.0. It's actually a Doom mod.
There's a better definition, it's just irrelevant because it's just a statement of my position.
Okay. So I actually wrote that down here.
I'm sorry, this is Project Brutality 3.0. My bad. I said that wrong. Project Brutality 3.0.
I've heard you say it before that if you're not, if you are strawmanning my position, if you do not accept the definition that I give, the problem with that is we could want to have a conversation because here's the problem. If I were to debate atheists and I were to say, I'm an atheist, and by that I mean, and then I were to give my definition, I don't believe there's any definition, I don't believe there's any evidence or reasons to believe in atheism. All I do is take the other side of that and just represent it to you before you start. Then you have to do what you're wanting me to do.
Correct. So you get to define your position however you want. You can name it Ghibli Wibbly if you want to, and just
right.
Position.
Okay.
Yeah, you can. You're right. I have to accept whatever definition you define as your position and however you define it.
Here's the problem with
if
that.
I don't do that, then that's misrepresenting your position.
Okay. Well, here's why I say that. Here's why I think the technical term that the philosophers use is used for a reason, is because you say I'm an atheist, by which I mean there is no evidence or reason, you said this time, to believe in a God. And then I say, okay, well, I'm an atheist, which by that I mean there are no reasons to believe in atheism. Where do we get with that? Absolutely nowhere. Because you might even agree that there are no arguments, like Pine Creek said that the other day, that there's no good arguments for atheism. He said there's no reasons for atheism. So I would say that gets us absolutely nowhere. Now, if we started with the proposition God exists or the proposition that God does not exist, we could get somewhere because as the article, I believe it was written by Paul Draper, says, there are only two answers to this question, that there is or God, that God does exist, or the negation of that claim. All the other claims are they're not direct answers to the question. In fact, he puts the definition has the added virtue of making atheism a direct answer to one of the most important metaphysical questions in philosophy of religion, namely, is there a God? There are only two possible direct answers to this: yes, which is theism, and no, which is atheism. Answers like I don't know, no one knows, I don't care, an affirmative answer has never been established, or the question is meaningless are not direct answers to this question. So I would just send it back to you.
Right, but my definition isn't a lack-theist definition. My definition is the positive claim, there is no evidence. So the same thing can apply to that claim. Either there is evidence or there is not evidence. So it moves the conversation forward in the exact same way. It just focuses on the part that the atheists care about. The actual majority of atheists in today's society don't actually care about the question, does God exist? That's not the point. The point is to say, there is no reason to believe in a God. Is there any evidence? That's the question that matters. And so it still applies in the same sense, whereas you'd have to say, there is evidence and here is some, or you'd have to agree there is not evidence.
Okay.
And if you want to take the atheist position, you could just derail the conversation. You can do that, but it doesn't change our position at all. So it doesn't. The conversation can progress forward if you just say there is evidence or there isn't evidence.
You see, but here's the thing. I believe that is actually your methodology with this. Not just you. So I'm not saying you're sinister. Actually, I actually really appreciate Tom, because I've asked many other people like Pine Creek to debate, and they're just like, no. Where Tom's like, what the. So I really appreciate him on that. So I'm not saying like he has some type of, motive, but I'm saying the methodology. If I were to start all my conversations with, I'm an atheist, by which I mean, and I'm not talking in typical terms, I'm talking in a colloquial term. Here's the problem with that. There are no reasons to believe in God. Okay? If that is the definition of atheism, as philosophers have pointed out to you on your channel, then a fideist, a Christian fideist, is an atheist.
Fuck, I hit the wrong button. Hit the wrong button.
Even they believe in God. They just don't think there's any good reason to believe, and they're fine with that. They say we don't have to justify it. So in that sense, they're Christian.
Oh my God!
And that's why I say the term breaks down.
Fuck.
Well, no, it doesn't break down at all. That's one of the classical mistakes Steve McRae thinks. He doesn't understand the difference between epistemic positions and ontological positions.
Oh, he's bringing Steve into this. No wonder Steve responded. Now I know why Steve responded. Okay. Yeah, Castillo, it is. I was busy. I was making videos and I didn't get to see any of it. So I'm wanting to take a look at it myself. I don't know why I'm having low video output to YouTube. What the hell is going on YouTube? Either live streaming is great or live streaming is cut off at the knee. It's never in the middle. That's right, Alan. You got it. That's right.
You can be an epistemic atheist, which means you think there are no reasons to believe in a God, but be an ontological theist, which means there is a God. So you can have the position that there are no reasons, like in the atheism, in the sense I'm using it, and still believe there is a God ontologically. So they would be epistemic atheists, but they would not be ontological atheists. There is no contradiction.
Okay, but see, I thought you might mention that because, as Paul Draper put in his article, we're identifying atheism with the metaphysical claim that there is no God. Now, if you want to say, well, no, it's an epistemic claim that, that there are no reasons to buy into it. Well, that's almost indistinguishable from agnosticism, because it's just saying that, hey, it may be true, but I just don't have any good reason to buy into it. Now, if you give me one, I will buy into it. But like I say, the shoe fits on the other foot. I could just run the exact parallel argument back to you about atheism. And that's why I think it breaks down again.
Well, again, no, it doesn't. It's not the same as agnosticism, as I explained in the beginning, because the atheist position is that things are always imaginary until demonstrated otherwise. So if you assert a God, we're not agnostic that there could be a God or there couldn't be a God. We're saying it's imaginary. It doesn't exist until you demonstrate it does. And so we've already met the burden of proof to say, nope, there is no God in the episode.
You have not met the burden of proof to say there is no God. That's bad as a flat earther. It's just the opposite way of thinking. Look, I don't care. You want to say that you don't believe in God, fine. You can't say that you haven't. You cannot make the statement that God doesn't exist because you haven't seen it. Then what? A country you haven't been to doesn't exist because you haven't seen it. A undiscovered species that man hasn't seen doesn't exist. Planets that are out there that, that's what I'm trying to say. You can't just say it doesn't exist now because it's illogical. It's wrong, in my opinion. I'm just, You get what I'm saying?
Epistemic sense.
I disagree. I disagree because making the claim that there are no reasons.
Yeah, you're making
isn't
a claim.
Exactly. Positive claim to meet some burden of proof against the fact that there is a God. So, for example, I'll just tell you.
You're right. I apologize. You're totally right about that. The point that this definition of atheism uses is that everything is imaginary until demonstrated otherwise is like a presupposition, you call it, where we've assumed this. We've met the burden of proof of this claim that everything is imaginary until demonstrated otherwise, which means if you assert a God, then it is already in its imaginary category, and you would have to get it out of that category. It starts there.
Right. Well, I'm familiar with your distinction of these categories. This isn't something that philosophers get into because then you're getting out of the definition of atheism and you're getting into a category that you have made up to justify your beliefs in atheism. And let me just point out the reason why I say that is because You're
I
saying
agree
that
with this guy.
you have to distinguish between the two, and the problem with that is that's going to get us into idealism, Berkeleyan idealism, and other fields that are completely outside of this question. That's going to pull us way down into the philosophy of whether you can actually justify something that's different, that's not imaginary, that's actually in reality as well. I know that you do believe that you can, and you believe you have a system for that, but I don't believe you do, and that all that's going to do is take us down that road into how do we justify that position.
That's the point. That's why I use that definition. It is the reason I use that definition is to get into those kinds of arguments because it is representative of my position. That's kind of the point.
Right, but don't you, but I like I said, I think that's part of your methodology, is that you're using. So if I were to say you can't come up with anything to differentiate reality from imaginary, you would try and come up with reason, but then I would have to buy into those reasons and say those reasons are reasonable. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Where's the problem?
Okay, do you want to go down that road and let's just hash it out? I mean, is that what you want to do? Because I'm willing to do that. I did want to. Well, we can get to the.
I don't want to get into the actual argument, but like if I take a position of a solipsist, a hard solipsist. So a hard solipsist thinks nothing exists except their mind. It's all an illusion.
Right.
That's their position. Now it doesn't matter how incoherent it is. Doesn't matter how silly it is. That's their position, and then you have to accept their position if you want to actually represent it. And then try to argue them out of it. They may or may not accept these arguments, but that's what you have to do to have an honest conversation. So I'm doing the same thing. I'm saying, this is my position. It's not like just a methodology. This is genuinely what I believe. This is what I actually hold to as a position. And I'm saying, if you want to say my position is incorrect, you have to first accept my definition and then attack that definition. If you change it to a different definition, you're just strawmanning my position.
Why is he so illogical? I don't understand.
So, I mean, it doesn't matter if you agree with the definition or not. If you want to actually engage with my position, you have to accept it simply for the purpose of the argument.
I agree with that sentiment. The only distinction I would make is that when people typically talk about atheism, they're in philosophical circles, they are not defining it the way you do. So if we're going to, basically what we're doing is we're conflating the term that you use as atheism with the term that was used by, the philosophers down through history, and we're going to say, well, you're going to take a softer position. Is that what you would call it? Because let me lay out why I think that people use this, and then you can tell me where I'm wrong. Like people like the American Atheist and Atheist Experience and people like that. I believe that they use it because they're pretty far on the left, and I believe that they see like LGBTQ plus 2 and the rest of them as taking small numbers of people, including as many as you can, to make a bigger group. So if you're just saying, nope, we say God doesn't exist, then you're going to be a much smaller group. But if you're open to, well, we're not saying God doesn't exist, we're just saying we don't have any reason to believe in it, then you're allowing in agnostics, Christian fideists, and other people into that group that say, yeah, I agree with that claim. And it makes your group bigger. What I'm so
let me pick up on that.
Sure.
So the use.
Yeah, they're still arguing about a definition to atheism because I guess TJumps' definition isn't accept. That dude doesn't want to accept TJumps' definition. I kind of agree with him. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of weird, but there it is. The right-wing political false equivalency to religion. No, I get it. But no, I mean, shit. They could just get on with it. I think they're 17 minutes in. It's kind of... I understand why Converse Contender, is that his name? I can call him CC, right? I can understand why he has a hang-up on it, but I mean, my God, at least just get past it for now, because it's starting to get... Every one of TJumps debates go this way, dude. It's very painful.
Usage of this term atheism doesn't come from big groups or political organizations. They definitely picked it up later. And you're right, they use it to try and gain inclusivity, but they mostly use it as a contrary position to say theism bad. That's essentially what they mean by it.
Right.
But the original usage of these terms was in the weak atheist sense, is because that's what the people who use them actually meant by them. Like, there are philosophers who have used these terms. There are and there are scientists who have used these terms, and there are people like Barendel Bach is the earliest one I know of who did it, and it was in like the 1700s. I have no idea what his profession was, but he used it in this sense because that's what he meant by it. It wasn't like a political move to try and get the most people involved. It's just that's just what he meant by the position. It's what he believed. And so the origin of this term is just that's what the people believe when they say it. So
I believe
it doesn't make a difference if you agree with it or not. It's just that's what their position is.
So let me just give you a hypothetical, because I'm trying to work this out for myself, and there's a lot of atheists and agnostics who agree with me on this. So let me just say this, and I'm not using that as a counter example against you, but rather I would just say help us to understand. Let's say that we were looking at a hypothesis, okay? What explains this? And we were to say, somebody were to say, I were to say, God. And you were to not say not God, or one guy says not God, okay? And then the other guy says, there's no reason to believe the God hypothesis. That doesn't negate the God hypothesis, obviously. That all that does is say, it doesn't even give an alternative hypothesis. It just says, I don't believe that one. It's like, well, what's your position? Like, what hypothesis are you giving? Oh, I'm just saying I'm not going to believe yours until you do this. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's not an answer to the question. The same way that Paul Draper put, in his article, that it's just not an answer to the question.
That's correct. It's not. It's just saying that your answer doesn't work. That's all it needs to say. Like, you hold the burden of proof. If you have a positive claim to say there is a God, you have the burden of proof to demonstrate it. And if you can't demonstrate it,
That's not what you said. You said there is no reason to believe in one. You didn't say that there isn't one. You said you weren't going to argue that there isn't one. That's the problem. That's what the guy's saying, TJump, for God's sakes.
Just say, nope,
Fuck.
not that answer. It doesn't mean I don't need an alternative.
Why can't you get it, bro?
I don't need to say that there's something else to do. I can just say that evidence is insufficient and be done. That is a coherent position.
Well, see, here's the thing, though, is when you have a position on something, then you hold a burden of proof the same as a theist. So if a theist and an atheist in the philosophical sense were to have a conversation, they both hold an equal burden. Now, if you were to say, no, but I'm not saying that God doesn't exist. I'm just saying I don't believe what you're saying is the case because there's not the reasons there. And like I say, all I would do is just adopt atheism as a position instead and say, that's what I am. I just don't find any reason. It's not an answer to the question either way. If we were to both say, I don't find any reason to believe in theism, and I don't find any reason to believe in atheism, it wouldn't get us anywhere. So that's one of the main...
You're confusing the definitions here. So my position, like, take the Big Bang or the cosmological part. The universe began to exist. My position isn't that I know what caused the universe. My position is that God didn't do that. There's no evidence to show a God did that. So I'm not saying I know what else did it. I'm not giving any alternatives. I'm just saying your evidence doesn't work. That is the argument. Like, I don't care what caused it. My position has no answer to that at all. It's not an interest to me. The only thing that interests me is that your arguments and evidence
this guy's a ding dong.
A solution don't work. That is the claim.
I really don't like this ding dong
in the modern social sense. It's just your claims that God did X are unsupported. That's all they care about. They don't care about what actually caused X. That's a different question. That's a question for the scientists, not a question for the atheists. The atheists are just saying, not God did that.
Yeah, well, here's the thing, though. It's important that we use the terms of the academy if we're going to have an academic debate. No, because if we were to have a debate on atheism, and it's your definition of atheism that you've come up with, and we were to have this full-out definitional debate, it would say nothing about the definition that philosophers use. It would just be that I'm refuting your personal position. Now, right. When we're right, and all that's going to do is just say, hey, that's just going to lead us to, Tom, I don't think that you have a way to distinguish the imaginary.
So My position is that there is no reason to believe in a God. So if you refute my position, then that proves there are reasons to believe in a God. So that's
Yeah,
not
and
just
my position is there are no reasons to believe in atheism. If you refute my position, then that would lead to your position being correct.
no, because again, my position isn't a positive position. It's just the negation of theism. So if there's no reason to believe in atheism, and atheism is the position that there are no reasons to believe in a God, and there are no reasons to believe that there are no reasons to believe in God.
You see, all I'm doing is I'm using your same logic, but I'm putting the shoe on the other foot because.
But Tom just can't fucking get it. I don't understand, dude. Now it's been 23 minutes. My God. They require a villain to sustain the validation for their belief system. Without a boogeyman, they can't get people to listen. Fear is their sales tactic. Snow Dog says, Valor, he would define a philosophical agnostic as an atheist. Philosopher replies, well, I read it wasn't real on YouTube video, lol. John Hillard, the imaginary is TJumps, love life. Snow Dog, Philosopher's Nonsense, that was just a shill. And Philosopher's Nonsense, yes, theism. If I miss anything you guys say, just retype it for me. Tag me. It helps me see it. Burden of proof is not applicable in a debate. It's mutual to each point. Each has a burden to provide their stance, and TJump has a self-defeating position. Thank you. I agree. Nonsense, are you saying Doom isn't real? How can that be? One, it is on the internet, and two, it was a movie. It has to be real. Good points, guys.
Because it works the same way. It
doesn't. It definitively doesn't, because my definition of atheism isn't the positive claim there is no God. It's the positive claim there is no evidence. So
right, and I'm saying
atheist, what that means is that you're saying that there are no reasons to believe that there are no reasons in God.
No, because like you said, you get to define your own position. See, you were strawmanning my position there. You see, I get to say yes, because what you say in your opening to your debates, when a philosopher or someone comes on, you say, I'm an atheist, and by that I mean, and then you give your definition, to which they almost always respond, but that's not the definition. And then you go, yeah, but that's what I mean by it, and you don't want to straw man my position. So my position is that I'm an atheist. By that I mean that I don't believe there's any good evidence or reasons for atheism that is defined in the way that philosophers use it.
Okay, so you're saying that you believe there are no reasons to believe God does not exist?
No. I'm saying atheism, the belief.
The belief that God does not exist?
Yes, that belief. I don't think there are any good arguments or evidences or reasons to believe that that is true.
Wait, so you believe that there are no good reasons to believe the belief that God does not exist is true?
Right.
Okay.
For the 9th time.
I can grant that, and we can have a conversation. The fact that you define it that way doesn't cause any challenges at all.
No, but I'm saying that's all you're doing, is you're saying that you just don't find there are any good reasons to believe that belief in God is true. It's the exact. I'm doing the inverse of what you said, and what I'm saying is, if there's a proposition, P, okay, P, God exists, or not even God exists, just any proposition. What caused this? What teleos? What purpose? What is the fine tuning? All of these things. What is the best hypothesis? Well, I say that there's no good evidence for not believing in God. You said there's no good reasons to believe in God, and that doesn't actually give an answer. So what I'm saying is, at some point, we're going to have to give answers to these questions instead of just trying to obfuscate and provide and try to get around our burden of proof, because that's the other thing is atheists like let's say Albert Camus, say Nietzsche, say Sartre, these guys, they knew we're not just saying we don't buy into the Bible or things like this. We're saying like, hey, there's going to be like, if atheism is true, here are the consequences. Like, it's not. And then they came up with their reasons. And so they knew that they had a burden of proof on themselves to say, here's the what we would do. And what they would do is they would give arguments like, let's say the argument from evil and things like that, to try and have a positive position and give an answer to the question rather than just go.
But I don't care about any of their positions. answers because I'm defining my position, not their position. So why do you keep bringing up their positions?
Because it's exactly what I just said. You say there's no reason to believe in God for this hypothesis. I say there's no reason to believe in not God for this hypothesis. Okay, well, what's the answer?
There's no issue there. You can
okay.
say that. So where's the problem?
I agree. The problem is, at some point, we have to actually give answers.
No. Again, my position isn't about giving answers to those questions. I don't know what caused the Big Bang. I'm not going to try and give an answer to that question. So if you keep trying to force me, straw manning my position to try and answer those, well, I'm not. My position doesn't answer that question.
Can somebody explain? Maybe I'm just slow. How is he straw manning him? Please tell me. Please tell me. How are they straw manning him? Can't self-create a definition in opposition to the very fundamental definition of what atheism means. He's claiming his atheism is X when X sounds like an agnostic cop-out, pseudo-atheistic. I agree, Valor, yeah. Valor, I understand, says Snowdog. I'm a strong agnostic. I have just watched too much TJump, and part of my brain is now damaged enough to understand him a bit. Philosopher of nonsense. They are arguing atheism is a belief system when atheism is the definition of a lack of theism, just like an amoral act is without morality. Exactly. I'm with you there. I'm with you. Philosopher of nonsense, per usual, they don't know what their argument really is. Negative. Philosopher of nonsense, you are correct. Philosopher, an atheist would say that there is no burden of proof for religion. It's that simple. That's why, TJump is a cop-out. He's trying to be he wants to be this big atheist, and he won't admit to himself that the argument that he's arguing doesn't really make sense in that. But in that way, it lets him say he's an atheist, but never argue it. So he can never be debunked or never have any good points made towards him. So I never liked TJump. Theism cannot even agree on one thing, yet a lack of theism is a homogeneous consensus, period. I don't know what Captain Evangelical is going on about. Raymond Duncan, straw man, if he can't explain where the universe came from, then his position is wrong. Philosopher, I used to be an understudy to a pastor. I was nearly a theologian. Hell yeah, dude. This debate would be much more enjoyable if everything T-Jump says is replaced with the wah-wah sound effect you heard in all the Charlie Brown cartoons when the adults were talking. Exactly. Snowdog, if you're genuinely interested, I encourage you to reach out to Steve. He is able to explain in a way everyone can understand. Philosopher, sorry, I have neuropathy. I type a lot. Type as much as you want, dude. I appreciate you typing a lot. Typing a lot in my chat helps my streams. Type away, my friend. Philosopher, Sean says, T-Jump's problem is that he won't tell us why. He doesn't think he has to. He's convinced himself that he doesn't have to explain his position. And that's what a lot of people do when they're worried that people will debunk them or when they don't know what they're talking about. I can't figure out which one it is with T-Jump, but we'll see.
Question. Doesn't try to. My position answers the question, does it indicate a God? So you keep trying to straw man me into using the stronger definition of atheism, which isn't my position.
No, I'm not straw manning you at all because I gave your definition and you accepted it. That's what a straw man is. And then I said that at some point, you say this and I say that, they get us nowhere. You said
that at some point we have to answer these questions.
You do. Why wouldn't you? What do you mean?
And by these questions, you mean like what caused the universe? Is there a God or is there not a God? Correct? That's these questions?
Yes.
And I'm saying I don't even attempt to answer that question.
Okay.
That is not a part of my model. That is something completely separate. So no, I don't ever have to answer the question.
All right, so let me put it in a different way. Philosophers have to give answers to these questions. And you said that you're a philosopher. So I would say...
No, they only have to give answers to those questions if they try to answer those questions. Like there are philosophers...
Oh my God, this guy, dude. I seriously think T-Jump is a ding-dong. Am I wrong? Am I freaking wrong? Negative, I wish I was able to explain in the same way Steve can. Sean, negative, Steve does have a gift. He really does. No, truly. Valor, my point is T-Jump keeps attacking CC's points without addressing the argument. He claims X, yet claims to represent Y. When CC says you're representing Y, aren't you supposed to be X? T-Jump whines. Exactly. Oh my God, Valor, I'm so glad you jumped in here, bro. Thank you. You're saying exactly what I've been thinking about him for a long time. Philosopher says the real problem is that people are using the term straw man as a pejorative without actually knowing what it really means. It's just like how people misuse the word liberal. There you go. Very true. Mark that on the calendar.
Of different kinds of fields, like philosophers of mathematics, that don't ever try to answer that question because it's not what they're working on. I am not working on that question. That is a different question. I am working on the question, is there evidence? That is the question I am answering.
Okay. So then this is what I'll point out is a lot of times when there's debates on between theist and atheist, there is an equivocation on these terms because people are speaking past each other. So you're saying, I'm not giving an answer. I'm just not buying into what you're saying because of the lack of reasoning. And I'm saying,
right. There are lots and lots of times where that happens, where they equivocate between the terms. That's why the first thing I say in every debate is, I am an atheist, and here is what I mean by it. So you can no longer equivocate because I've just told you exactly what I mean by it. And so it's equivocating at that point.
But you didn't give a correct definition to an atheist. You didn't do that. He didn't give the correct definition. I got the notification of this stream through the Force because they keep saying my name all the time, lol. You're the only one that got it.
You're just misrepresenting my position because I've already told you what it is.
Half the time, lots of notifications go out when I do a stream, and I mean a lot. And then the other half of the time, no notifications go out. Maybe like 20 minutes in, 30 minutes in, a notification will go out, something like that. Yeah.
But here's the thing is, that definition is
By the way, I haven't shared the link to this anywhere. Let me do that.
integral to your model.
No, it's integral to my position. It literally represents my position.
Yeah, but also to your other positions, because to your other positions, you have a framework of beliefs, okay? And here's the thing is, like when a philosopher...
I'm not following. What do you mean?
Well, let me finish, and you maybe you'll follow.
No, he does have you do, TJump. You do have a framework of beliefs. You stated there is no reason to believe in God. Yet you will not fucking explain it. I'm not trying to get you to believe in God. Be an atheist. Be whatever you want, man. Just, god damn, when I was an atheist, I could tell you for years why I was an atheist. I would never stop talking if you sat down to have a conversation with me about it. Seems like it's the opposite with T-Jump. I've watched like 9 of his debates. I still can't figure out how he feels about any of the subjects he debated. I'm not kidding. Maybe if you guys do understand T-Jump, if somebody in here does, type it for me. Please. I thought a debate entailed answering questions in which a way to convince your audience that your position is more correct than compared to your opponent. Thomas, you are on it, dude. Yes. Snowdog, yes, they are doing a straw man. What they've been doing to Adhom for years, I'd say T-Jump isn't an atheist, says he hate me. I agree. I don't think he is either. I think he's more agnostic than anything else, but he won't admit it. And that's why he hates Steve. Steve goes into the atheist community and says, dude, most of you guys aren't even atheists. You're agnostic, but you won't admit it. And then they start to hate Steve for it. And yes, T-Jump does hate Steve with a passion, so it kind of makes sense there. But anyway, it's way more complicated than that. I'm trying to very much simplify it. Somebody else could probably type it better than I could say it. We're not even sure what T-Jump is. He hate me. Oh, yeah, we don't know. I'd love for someone to explain it. T-Jump is really just advertising his epistemology to gain supporters for a book he wants to write about it. Oh, my God, dude. Is that why he started a YouTube channel after attacking Steve over the non-sequitur stuff? Probably. Bunch of opportunistic people there, right? This isn't one of those debates. Philosophical debates fall under a different set of rules. I was on the debate team for 3 years, and we wouldn't have touched this topic. Valor says there's a burden of proof for each individual argument to be presented. The issue is that T-Jump claims he has nothing to prove it, yet the point of a debate is to prove one's point. He is playing a gotcha. Yeah, he does that a lot, honestly. I don't have a notification activated. I just have a life and spend my existence lurking on YouTube. Me too, buddy. We're good. We are one and the same. Religion made me an atheist, says philosopher of nonsense. It did, once it did me too, yes. Religion made me an atheist once. Now I do believe that there is a creator, and I have a hard time explaining it. I'm going to go try to talk to Ansgor of End Time again, because me and him had a conversation live streamed on his channel that was like, it really helped me understand what it is that, how to categorize what it is I feel. And a lot of people tell me that I have a very strange outlook on God, religion, and atheism and such. But I was an atheist longer than I was a believer for the majority of my life. Yeah, like I said, he's just sitting there saying, "Prove it." I am not a debater, so I hadn't known that. Thanks, says Thomas. And this is a travesty. I don't feel he's representing atheism while claiming to represent atheism with a lazy and apathetic cop-out. Well, you feel like most people do towards TJump, Valor.
So when a philosopher comes on to your channel and they say, that's not the definition of atheism that we use in philosophy, you say, it doesn't matter. Don't straw man put my own position. I start with atheism, and by that I mean this, because if you didn't use that definition of atheism, it would alter your framework or your model, because now you have to acquire a burden of proof.
No. If I didn't use that definition, I would be strawmanning my own position. Like, I could define atheism as the belief that there are 10 gods, and then I could use that definition, but it wouldn't be my position. The reason I use that definition...
It also wouldn't be a good definition of it. So,
it doesn't matter. The definition can't be good or bad. They're arbitrary. You can pick whatever definition you want. That's how language works.
Okay. Well, let me make this point. If it's true that that atheism is, let's take your position. If atheism is that there is no, I do not believe in your God because there are no reasons. So
no. It's not that. It's just saying, okay, I believe that, or there are no reasons to believe in a God.
Just one second,
I don't
guys.
believe in your God.
If we can move into now the effects of atheism, we're going to split this up into an hour. So that's a half hour. We got done with the first part. Now we get to the effects now. Thank you.
Well, I mean, I think those are the same thing. You're talking about the effects is like the fact that there's equivocation. That's like one of the effects.
Here's one of the effects. Here's one of the effects. That's what I was about to get into is, as other philosophers have mentioned to you, having a definition like that of atheism, where it's that there are no good reasons to believe in a God, does not negate theism. So
right.
It's not. In fact, there are many Christians that would fall into that category. And as other atheists have, as other atheists have said, if they're a Christian atheist, then I'm not an atheist. And so, what I would point out is, I think that how this affects the great debate community is, I think it has a negative effect. I think it has an adverse effect in the sense that we have to actually sit down and debate these terms rather than use the ontological, rather than making an affirmation about a proposition. We have to sit down and hash out what we mean by this. I'm an atheist, and by that I mean this. And if that is compatible with theism or specifically Christianity, I don't see how that's productive. Or, I mean, you're saying you're not answering the proposition, but I still don't see how it's productive or coherent.
Again, it doesn't have to be. Like, no one's opinion matters. This is my position. I get to define it however I want. No one gets an opinion on it.
Oh my
no one
God!
Else gets
Shut
a
up, TJ.
It makes no difference what anyone else thinks. I can just pick. It doesn't have to be. It's not even.
So is he a troll? Would you define TJump as a troll? I think I'm starting to, by his own, by what he's saying, I'm starting to define him as a troll. I think realistically we can, without even insulting the guy. But let me see what you think. I can easily accept an agnostic argument because I can admit that I don't have a substantial fact to argue against it. New drinking game. Drink every time they say my name. There's a difference between different levels of confidence in God. The term agnostic is too vague and can include different people with conflicting beliefs. Simple agnostic versus atheist versus theist lacks. Philosopher, I love it when I can get here for the live stream. I do too, bro. Glad to have you. Line of thought right now. I can't talk like you correct and fast. I will never be heard, says Viking. Valor, that's not how language works. Definitions are the basis of language. We debate to change definitions. They are established. Atheists believe X. It is defined by thousands of debates. Very true. Snowdog. Snowdog. Wait, did I skip somebody? Yeah. Got it. Okay, so lumping agnostics into atheists lessens the confusion. The effects are that there are less sheep. I've got an excellent breakdown of these terms that Steve explained during a stream with a month or two back. Valor, TJump believes words have no intrinsic meaning and we can define them however we want. We equals any individual. Is there a brutal doom mod for wacky evangelical zombies like Jerry Falwell's and Mark Sargent's? There could be. You'd have to make it. It wouldn't be too hard. There should be so much more blood. Look at the size of those things. That's a more existential and nihilistic cop-out, and it's not a debatable point. He is trolling. Okay, good. TJump is a troll, said philosopher. Thank you. Okay, I want to make sure I'm not the only one thinking that way because I don't want to try to be mean to the kid, but God bless America, bro.
The same with the word atheism. You can just pick this for any word. I mean, if you define this word to mean this, and anyone else says you're wrong, then they're strawmanning your position, no matter what.
Okay, I see.
No matter what.
It's not good or bad or right or wrong. Language is arbitrary by definition. So whether or not you agree with my definition is irrelevant. It doesn't make a difference. This is just what I mean by the term.
Well, by arbitrary, you mean that language has usages, right?
I mean arbitrary as in you can make any word mean anything you want.
Well, you could, but we do have it. But we use terms like what we're using right now to communicate in order to communicate. So if you use the term in any way you want, it wouldn't necessarily be communicating with me. I mean, a nihilist would communicate with you and say nothing in a bunch of words.
That's why if you're using a novel definition, a definition that is not the same as the consensus or the normal usage, what you have to do is you say, here, I'm using this word in a non-normal usage, and here's the way I'm using it. At the beginning of the conversation, so they know at the beginning that that's not what it means they're thinking about it. That's what I do in every conversation. I say, I'm using this word in a non-standard way at the beginning of every conversation.
I get it. I understand what you're saying. Here's my thing is, if you have philosophers on, and then you start with the non-philosophical definition, and I'm fine with that if you want to do that. But here's what I would say is if you want to start with the philosopher and say, but I'm not using the philosophical definition, you just said was, I get to define it however I want, and then you have to go by what I define it as. I would just point out that that's the same way with your morality model. Is in your debates, people say, well, what do you mean by morality? And you say, well, what I mean by morality is the best possible world, or something like this, or non-imposition on will, something like this. And like I say, when you use your own personal definitions in a debate like that, it there's a lot of room for equivocation, of course, but if somebody knows what you're saying up front, I don't think it's the same debate as the rest of the great debate community's having on morality, or atheism. Do you get what I mean by that?
I don't care about the great debate community. They're pretty much insignificant for the most part. I'm only interested in conversations with actual philosophers and professors, and they don't have a problem with my definition. I just say, here's the definition I'm using, and they say, okay. Or some of them say, well, I like this definition better. This is the one philosophers use. And I say, I don't use that. And they say, okay. Like, philosophers don't have an issue understanding the lack-theist definition. It's pretty much the majority definition of most atheists. So philosophers have no issue.
Do you have any studies for that?
That most philosophers understand what...
No. Do you have a citation that it's pretty... Do you have a citation that it's pretty much the majority position among atheists?
Popular atheists, yeah, like Sam Harris, Christopher Hitchens.
Right.
Richard Dawkins, all the people who follow them, the majority of popular atheists use the lack-theist definition.
I agree.
The majority of the American atheists, the American humanists, all of those associations use the same definition. So if we're just based off of...
I would stop at the popular atheist. Paul Draper has a section in this article in the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy that talks just about new atheism, and he mentions all the four horsemen by name, and he says all their positions are nothing new. Like you could read it yourself, but it's just I don't think you could say that it's the majority position among atheists. Now that may be true, but I would just like a citation for it though, if that were the case.
I could probably find one, but it's so obvious I just don't even look for one, because if you look at all of the big atheist organizations that have the most members, they all use that definition. If you look at all the big YouTube channels, they all use that definition. If you look at all of the people in conferences, they all use that definition. So I don't think so. But,
I think the philosophy community of atheists all don't use it.
All right, I totally agree. The philosophy community, which is an extremely small minority of atheists who know...
Yeah, but you appeal to philosophers when we're talking about philosophy. A lot of times in your debate, you go, well, 70% of philosophers are are atheists, and 50% of those are naturals, and you give all these terms about philosophers where your opponent can just go, it doesn't matter. I'm talking about popular people. I'm talking about ad populum.
So an argument from authority is when you use an authority in a field who is actually an authority in that field. So if I'm talking about, like, does philosophy as a field indicate a god, and I say most philosophers are atheists, that's a reasonable argument. But if I said the definition of atheism I use, the number of philosophers who use a different definition are irrelevant because they're not authorities on the definition I use. I am the only authority on the definition I use.
Right,
so
but what?
Appealing to authorities is totally fine if you leverage the field that they're an authority in. But I'm not talking about the field they're an authority in. I'm talking about the field I'm of authority in, which is my position. So the only authority who gets to define my position is me. So no amount of philosophers ever get any say on that at all.
Okay, but what? Okay, so only I understand. Like, you're like, hey, I'm just going to hold in my position. This is my position. I don't care what philosophers or anybody else have to say. But this is what I would say about that is, at this point, all I can do is try to hold you to consistency, because, you know, I can remember a time where you were debating, and I mentioned this before, that about moral progress, and somebody says, well, why is that moral progress? And then you said, well, that's just the way the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy defines it.
Because you said that before. I wanted to pick up on that. So when I'm talking about morality, I'm arguing morality is objective, which means there's a standard independent of human minds. When I'm talking about definitions, I say they're arbitrary, which means by definition, they're just made up by human mind. Anybody can pick whatever definition they want. So I'm not claiming that the definition of atheism has an objectively correct definition, but I am claiming that morality has an objectively correct definition. That's the difference between the two. So if
it just seems arbitrary to pick and choose which definition, just to pick and choose like what you want. Okay,
yes,
so
exactly.
you admit it's arbitrary.
Remember,
okay.
The natural ambiguity of language is arbitrary. You can make any word mean anything you want it to mean. Language is arbitrary.
No, it's arbitrary in the sense that you can make it mean whatever you want to mean, but in communication, language isn't arbitrary. It's still
arbitrary.
No, I don't believe so. Like, for example, I hear a lot of atheists go, words don't have meanings, they have usages, but usages of words have meaning. Because if not, how could we communicate?
So there's this problem in the field of linguistics. I'm going to appeal to the philosophers now. That's called the natural ambiguity of language. Just by definition, language is arbitrary. There isn't any kind of hard, concrete, correct definition.
I'm not disagreeing with that. These two aren't mutually exclusive of my claim. It's not mutually exclusive of my claim that usages of words have meaning.
Okay, so again, language is arbitrary. I grant that is true. So you can pick whatever definition you want. Morality, I argue, is not. Morality, I think, is not arbitrary. It is objective. There's some external referent independent of humans. So that's
but here's the thing. You mentioned morality, and you said that it is objective. It is not. You can't just pick your definition. But that's exactly what you do, because you define morality as imposition of the will. And
So I think, to use an analogy, I think morality is like a particle that exists in the world. It is a thing that exists independent of minds, and that particle makes us feel intuition, essentially. And so the morality is objective. It exists independently.
Wait. Can you start over and say that again?
So I think morality is objective. And the best way I have to explain this is to say...
And by objective, you mean that it's independent of human thought or interest?
And opinion, yes.
Opinion, yeah.
So
go on.
Like if it was the particle that existed in the universe.
Okay, go on.
Atoms are objective. You don't get an opinion on atoms. Atoms exist. What you think doesn't make a difference. So I think morality can exist like a particle. It exists in the universe independent of your opinion. So it is not like language. Language does not exist in the universe like a particle.
Yeah, but I believe particles are made up, and by particle I mean whatever I want it to mean, an arbitrary definition. Like,
okay, but you would have to give that definition before we started the conversation to be able to be clear.
By particle, I mean triples.
Okay, great.
That's what I'm saying is it doesn't get us anywhere. Yeah, you disagree. Like
I can prove that false immediately. Every one of my conversations makes progress. Everyone with philosophers and professors, it gets us completely through the conversation just fine.
It does, but as Ben Arbor, which is going to be on, I'm going to have him on next week. on my channel, he said in your debate, I believe it's him that said at the beginning, he goes, but hold on a second, that's not atheism, that's compatible with other positions. And then he said, then you said, well, let's just move past that and start with what I'm saying, and then we'll go through my view, and that way that you don't straw man my position. He says, okay, but as long as we're defining our terms not loosely, like, and we're keeping up with, he said, I'll move on. But he was hesitant, and so when you say,
well, no, that's exactly
philosophers get through my position every time, they do, but it's almost every time where they go, okay, we're gonna have a philosophy debate, but you don't, by atheism you don't mean the typical definition.
Well, actually, no, that's a majority of times. I think it's only about 10 to 15% where we actually start debating the definition of atheism. Everybody else just accepts it right off the bat. They just say, yep, okay, and we move on. But just like you pointed out in the Ben Arbor example, it took about 5 seconds for us to move on. Yep, okay, so here's the definition, here's the philosophical definition, I choose to use this one, okay, we're accepting that, and we're moving on. So yes, we can make progress with this definition. There's no problem here, unless you're being deliberately trying to derail the conversation.
I agree. You're not. I agree that you're not purposely trying to avoid the giving your definition. I agree that you're not trying to obfuscate by using that definition.
Is that the example you used, where you said you could be an atheist. If you're deliberately trying to derail the conversation, you could do that regardless. You don't need to change definitions to do that. You can derail
right. But like I say, now all I can do now, since you define that, is hold you to consistency. So you said, yeah, but that's my position, and you can take up the inverse position to try and derail my position. But that's exactly what you do with naturalistic pantheism. Theists have a position. You take up a position almost the exact same as theirs, but you put the title naturalism on it, and you say it could be that, and then you basically say, no, your position can't be true because of this. And so I'm saying that's exactly what I'm doing, is I'm giving the inverse and saying I could do that too, and it gets you nowhere with your. See, you have to start with your definition.
Similar. So you're just derailing the conversation by playing with definitions. I'm actually addressing their position. They believe there is a God being that exists, which is conscious, and so I think, okay, so how do I refute this position? I accept their position. Now I say, well, can I remove one part of that being and say this is what it is? So I remove consciousness, and if this thing exists, that proves them wrong. So I accept their definition 100% and then show it's wrong. So for you to do the same thing, you would have to accept my definition 100% and then show there's evidence of a God.
No, but what I can do is do the exact. I can accept your position that you don't believe there's any reasons for God, and then I can take an exact opposite position that I don't believe there's any reasons for not God. And then that wouldn't, like I say, that doesn't get us anywhere, because all we're doing is...
You're just derailing the conversation, so that's irrelevant. So the reason we're not getting anywhere is because you're just wasting time. My definition actually represents something. It's meaningful. It holds a position, a positive and negative position.
No, it doesn't. TJump. No, it
moves
doesn't.
The conversation forward. Your
wrong,
position just derails it and does nothing. I
can't do this anymore. I'm skipping ahead. I cannot sit and listen to this bullshit thing that's going on.
Something that I consider supernatural. So if I pick anything that I consider supernatural,
yeah, but it makes the supernaturals, the position of the person who accepts supernaturalism, trivialized. It makes it seem lessened. So, but I take your point, and what I would say is that Ghost, yeah, but Ghost is not a it's not a claim that you can. Okay, so there's not a claim that ghosts are things that you can test or something like that. So if we were to see, let's say, how? Because if we were to see a ghost, you would just go.
And there is a specific name of this gold. This ghost is Bob or whatever, and I can say this ghost exists, and we can prove it exists because it'll. Every time I pray for a gold brick, it produces a gold brick, or every time I pray for it to write a message down. Or
okay, but you have to distinguish. Let's say that, as the Bible says, knock and the door shall be open. Now I know that you said that the reason why you became an atheist is because you prayed and your prayers didn't come true. But what I'm saying is that it may be the case that some supernatural is not going to just go, hey, we're gonna test for it, and if he makes it happen, then it happens. It could be the case that the supernatural is a person that goes, I'm not bending to your will. You'll
Yeah,
humble
that's
yourself
possible.
before me, and then I
So-
will demonstrate myself to you.
So if the supernatural is not testable, then we have no reason to believe it.
No, that's not true.
No, that's what I'm saying. That is your claim. Okay. Now, what I would say is that seems like a verificationist position.
Okay. Let me clarify. So, for anything that exists, anything we think exists, the supernatural, the natural, the ubernatural, the super duper natural, the undernatural, whatever.
See, I think that's trivializing the supernatural
No,
again.
I'm
It
showing
doesn't
you
help your position, though.
there's other things other than the supernatural. It's not just natural and supernatural. There's a whole bunch of other alternatives. In fact, there's infinite.
What distinguishes those? What
You
distinguishes
just
those?
make up any distinction you want between them. It's
Okay.
arbitrary. Pick anything
It's
you
just
want. So you can pick it, and anything you assert exists, you have to show, is this an imaginary thing or is this a real thing? Because if I'm imagining a unicorn, I don't see a unicorn in front of me. There's these two different
I
things,
understand.
the head and the thing in the world. So we
Yes.
need some criteria to differentiate, is it imaginary or is it real? Now,
I know,
agree
but that's
with-
your claim. Why do you
no,
need
that's
that?
not a claim. That's just an absolute fact. We know that.
But I'm just asking why. Why do you need that?
Why do I need what?
Why do you need some way to distinguish between the? Oh, well, you know what? If you would, let's have this conversation on another day on my channel or yours, because we're getting off the topic. But let me just say this.
No,
What do you
asked,
think?
how do we test for the supernatural? How we test
Yeah,
for anything?
But this
We have
doesn't.
to show it's not imaginary. If we
Okay, so
can't show
I'll
it's
go
not
down this
imaginary,
trail
then
with.
it could just be imaginary. That's
Okay,
why.
so I'll go down this road with you, but what I'm saying is that I do think it's off topic. But I agree that we both kind of went down this rabbit trail. So, but what I would say is you're setting the deck in your favor, because what you're saying is, if you can't demonstrate it to not be imaginary in natural terms, then
No.
it's not the case.
No.
Okay, go ahead.
So we need some way to differentiate.
Some
is this
method.
an imaginary thing?
Right.
Any method. Any method. It could be a supernatural method. It could be a natural.
He uses some really weird, like almost flat earth logic. Steve McRae, I'd love to. Last UNIRocktv is reviewing one of your vids, then no. Oh, is Steve in here? Hey, what's up, Synthetic? Good to see you, buddy. I'd say the reason people aren't watching is because debates like this are boring. It's already been done so much, especially if you've been watching YouTube for 10 years or more. What now? Does Uni ever link my videos in these reviews? Hint, hint. Yes, I do. I did in the beginning, Steve. 100%. Yeah, actually, you're in the title. I didn't put your last name here. Let me put your last name in the title too. Yeah. We're actually going to be watching your breakdown of this in just a minute. Math and logic don't need emotions. Roland, that's hominum thought. This still avoids the real question, which God? Philosopher of nonsense, lol for sure. Just wondering. So wait, let me try to read this again. I'd say reason people aren't watching is because debates like this are boring because it's already been done so much. Well, yeah, I know. I'd say the reason people aren't watching is that reason and because I'm playing a video game. But we just had a show maybe 2 days ago that had 3,000 concurrent viewers, Synth. So I don't know what. I don't always do videos because I'm trying to get a bunch of viewers. I honestly did this video reacting to this discussion, and then we're gonna go over here to Steve McRae's breakdown of it, and I'm gonna watch it too because I wanted to watch this, but I also wanted to do a live stream and play a video game, and I'm like, oh, let's just squash them all together. You see what I'm saying? You get what I mean? Oh yeah. If I wanted to get views, I'd just do what I did the other night and probably play Nathan Oakley screaming at the top of his young lungs or something. I don't know. Philosopher, well, of course they are using flat earth logic. They're the same breed of animal. Uni, would you have Steve McRae? Uni would have you on if you're interested, said Rodent. Oh, yeah, I plan on getting Steve in soon. I mean, link to the video on my channel in video description. All good. Yeah, I'll throw it in there. Hold up. I can do that right now, Steve, so because I will forget if I don't. Yeah, I usually don't set up my descriptions until after I stream. Anyway, but let me throw it in there now because I will forget. The late night streams, I always forget. And wham bam, thank you, ma'am. Actually, I might as well be nice. I'll go ahead and link to the great debate one too, even though I don't think that this is going to get a lot of views or anything, but still. Yeah, this is just like a random late night live stream, y'all. I was too busy today doing some edited stuff and some other things to write the stream out, you know what I'm saying? Like actually you know, like do an outline and pull a bunch of clips together and all that. So I just decided in Discord to jump in here. Once I saw Steve live, I was like, hold on. And then I went to Great Debate, or I'm sorry, is it Great Debate or Modern Day Debate? Let me look. Yeah, Modern Day Debate. I went over to Modern Day Debate and I was like, oh, TJump. And when I saw the title, I was like, I need to watch this. So, yep, I figured, hell, we'll just let the peeps that want to hang jump on in.
Natural method could be God, could be anything you want, but you need some way to show it's not imaginary. Because if you can't show it's not imaginary, well, then it could just be imaginary and not real. And it doesn't matter what this method is. You can pick any method you want if it works. I don't care if it's natural. I don't care if it's supernatural.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing is it doesn't. You're making a lot of claims. You're saying we need a way to distinguish between the. Well, let me ask you this first. What is natural? What give me a definition of natural.
I don't know. I have no idea. There's no like.
You don't know.
Definition.
Okay.
So I didn't say anything about natural. I just said there's imaginary things and there's real things. And we need somebody.
Yeah, but we're talking about the supernatural. Right.
No, real. If the supernatural exists, it's real. So there are imaginary things and there are real things.
And by real, you mean
exists
something that exists in reality.
Yeah, so that would include God. That would include the supernatural. That would include anything that exists. Magic, miracles. If it's real, it exists.
You would agree that we have to assume that things like idealism isn't true, and things like that to even get to your position to say what is reality, what is real.
No.
Solipsism, we have to be past
that's
all
what's
of that.
real. If the idealism is true, that's what's real. There's just two different kinds of imagination. Now we have a superficial level at our visualized imagination, and we have a deeper level of the imagination that describes reality around us. You don't have to assume that at all. So there's things that are in imagination. Like when I imagine a unicorn, I don't see a unicorn. Those are two different things. If idealism is true,
I can agree with that. I can agree with that part. And then you give an implication. Go on.
So we need to show, how do we tell the difference between these two things?
Okay.
And that's it. Just give me a method to tell the difference between these two things. Is what you're asserting the supernatural? Is it one of the things in our head, or is it one of the things in the world?
And you would say that by in the world, you mean the natural world, correct?
No, absolutely not. No,
you don't?
I mean, whatever we're experiencing around us, whether it's idealistic, whether it's materialistic, whether it's dualistic, I don't care. There is some difference between our imagination and our experience.
And you distinguish that
thing, whatever that is, that's reality. That's the world. And it could be supernatural, could be idealistic. I don't care. There is some difference between these two.
At risk of staying off topic, I would just say, and your method by which to distinguish between these two is your perception?
Testable prediction. That's how I use. You can pick any method you want.
Right. Okay. So that's just an arbitrary.
If we can wrap this up, guys, and we're gonna have a big question and answer period, the super chat. So, maybe you guys can give a concluding statement, or so you guys want to do that.
Okay, so
we'll come back. I want to hear what Steve says. Oh shit! I still had it loaded while Steve was still live. Hold on, I want to get Steve's opinion on here a little bit.
All right, we're gonna try. It went about as well as big. All right, we're going to try take two here because I just accidentally streamed to the other channel, the Great Debate Community channel. I will delete that later on. It was supposed to go to this channel because I had set the things up for this channel. My apologies. This is the problem. I have multiple channels and not sufficient software to actually be able to switch between one or the other on the fly. So my apologies. But tonight, I don't know if you guys watched, but TJump, the atheist extraordinaire, decided to have a discussion with Converse Contender, who's a theist, who's actually pretty well educated, I think. And it went about as well as we expected. But we figured we'd have a little quick after show with it, with Ask Yourself. By the way, can I use your first name?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Isaac. And we also have Steven here, who's a deist. But I don't know if Steve, you watched most of it. I saw you come in later, but you watched most of it toward the end, right?
Yeah, I followed most of it.
Right.
Yeah, basically TJump trying to basically come up with his own definition of atheism, and Converse basically just giving the actual definition from Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy that is the denial of the existence of gods.
Yeah, he opened up with that. So let's kind of dive into it real quick. So the topic was supposed to be the definition of atheism, which again, everybody's favorite subject, not. Once again, I'll reiterate, I really hate contrary to popular opinion, I really hate arguing definitions because definitions are descriptive. They're not prescriptive definitions. You can use any definition you want, but you have to at least make an argument for why, if you do use that argument, why it doesn't have certain problems or why it's better for utility. So when they both agreed that the philosophical definition of atheism is the most normative, that's what you find in philosophy. So that was good, right? Right off the bat, TJump at least recognized that. Converse had read right out of the Stanford Encyclopedia, that's the most normative by Dr. Paul Draper. I think right now, people are now at the point where they recognize that to be the case. I think the atheist experience and the American atheists have lost that narrative that atheism is merely a lack of belief. That's shot through the window. Not many people that are educated in philosophy accept that. Matter of fact, I don't know of any. So that, right off the bat, was fine. But then after that, it went downhill. It just went to crap. And let me run it by Ask Yourself. Ask Yourself knows about philosophy. I've talked to him. The dude is legit.
Don't overstate it.
I'm not going to say you're a Jack Angstrom level, but you're legit. So
where the fuck do I
the
go,
way I was
bro?
interpreting his argument, I'm going to try to steel man it the best I can. And tell
Yeah, can I just cut you off right there?
Yeah.
With TJump, normally we talk about someone else's argument like this is their argument, and we understand like it's hard to perfectly capture what someone thinks. But with TJump, you got to be very explicit that it's an interpretation because no one really has any clue what the fuck he's saying, like 99% of the time.
Yeah, thank you.
So
thank you.
Just felt like throwing that in.
It's very difficult.
Oh my God, makes me feel so much better that another human being says that out loud. God bless America.
Understand
Thank you.
What he's trying to get at, because I don't think he has a coherent framework like he thinks he does. But this is. Go ahead. Yeah, please.
Sorry.
No.
The other thing I want to say is I'm not sure. I don't know your audience. I don't know what kind of community we're speaking to right now. It might actually just be worth reading out this paragraph about atheism. It'll probably take about 30 seconds.
Oh, they know. No, my audience is they've been exposed to all this many times. They're philosophically literate.
Okay.
At the most part, I would say that 95%. I love that number. It's an inside thing, but 95% of my audience is extremely literate on this topic. And so we don't have to convince them of that. But
okay.
I missed.
So TJumps are, and by the way, they're not really hip on TJumps argumentation either. And in fact, I noticed more atheists kind of go after TJump and saying stop representing us than theists argue against him. But,
well, yeah, I think sentences like if you talk about like smart people being down with TJump's argument or philosophers being down with TJump's argument, like those things are like verging on being contradictions. So.
Yeah. By the way, yada yada yada, you are in the 5%. Yes, my friend. He's in the other 5%. Just kidding, yada. I love you. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to try to parse his argument the best as possible. I've sent this link, by the way. The Hangout seems to be working. I set up a Google group. And the people that have asked me to vet them, I have vetted them. I will check out, either I know who they are and I know their email already. If not, then I've already vetted them. I have a list now. It's growing pretty substantially of people that are pre-vetted. They're coming to hang out anytime. When I do these hangouts, I'm just going to give them the link, send it out, boom, mass email, and then you can come in at will. That's what I did tonight.
I didn't know you ran it like that. Can I send Malpass a link?
Yeah, of course. Well, dude, it's 2 o'clock in the morning for him.
Oh, it's so late over there. Of course it is.
I would love to. I haven't talked to Alex in a very long... I know this is kind of... We jump all over the place a lot on my channel, but I love Alex because Alex would, like, drink a couple pints at the bar, and he'll get out of the bar, like, whatever late time, like 2 o'clock in the morning. It's, like, really early for me, right? What's that?
Has Dr. Malpass updated his website? Because last time I checked on it, I had a virus. Because last time I tried to check on his basically breaking down Matt Slick's argument, it sent a virus that attacked my phone.
Yeah, I think there's some problems with it, but it'll be like 6 o'clock my time. He'll message me a regular time, like 4 o'clock a.m. my time is noon to him. So when a regular message, he'll message me like 4 a.m. But I'll get this message during the day from Alex, and all of a sudden we'll start having drunk philosophy kind of thing. Right? Love that stuff.
He's great. I think he has a bit of a spider sense. Like, I'll talk to him once in a while, and I think that he'll get this. I think that he gets. I think he senses when I'm getting confused with some philosophy topic. Like, once he hears me say something like, "I'm just really not sure about knowledge, dude," he'll be like, "Do you want to chat? Like, do you want some help?" Like,
Alex
please.
is one of those giving people of his knowledge of any person I've ever seen. The man is just a godsend. Read for $2. TJump epistemology equals letting an untied balloon free.
Oh my god. Well, this is the thing, is like you guys talk a lot about atheism, and it's not a topic I know a whole lot about. I have some basic sort of ideas there, but if you talk about, like, there's the things that I know Tom on, like the morality stuff, or I talked to him a bit about epistemology, which you just mentioned. He has insane views on. It's not the subject for this stream, but when I talked to him about epistemology just before my debate with him started, I just asked, like, what kind of general theory of epistemic justification he's using? Is he a coherentist? Is he an infinitist? Is he a foundationalist?
I'm a classical foundationalist, for the moment.
Right, you mentioned that, and he said none of the above, right, which is always a red flag to me. Of like, I think
he's a TJumpist.
like, look, there's hybrid positions, and you could have
found
a weird view,
but he wouldn't know what found herentism is.
No, and so I asked, like, about, does he think all justification's inferential? He didn't know what I meant, so I was like, well, oh god, he doesn't know anything about the topic, right? So I was like, look, do you think, like, all justification comes in the form of an argument? And he was kind of saying yes, but then I was like, is there anything that's just non-inferentially justified? And it came down to him saying he has one non-inferentially justified belief, and
I cannot keep playing that damn freaking game. Oh my goodness. I have exposed myself to my audience often, says Steve. Math and science is tangible. Beliefs exist in minds and prophesied by higher believers. Thor is God also. Jeffrey Epstein did not kill himself, said Viking. Back online, said our top. Sorry, AFK, said philosopher. Valor says, Steve, I think TJump tried to argue as an atheist while he wasn't representing anything close to what atheism is. I think CC was brilliant to hold him to that point for so long. Well, you got to sometimes, right? He was describing some, Steve replies, he was describing some strange form of idealism and epistemic justification versus position on ontology. Steve then says, TJump doesn't understand any of this. I agree, Steve. I agree. And I don't know if he has, does he have fans or followers? Because if he does, my God, do we need help on the internet. Good Lord. And I'm not trying to be mean. I think it all stems from TJump thinking he's smarter than everybody else and thinking that he's almost like a calm Nathan Oakley, but in the philosophical realm. Because what he does is he stays super calm and he argues he uses words to kind of not words. I won't say semantics. He kind of does though, doesn't he? By arguing definitions in this weird way that he does. It's like, sure, but you need to go in and at least, like, if you have a different definition for something than everybody else does, you need to state it in the beginning and at least try to figure out a word that, makes up for the fact that you're not using that definition, I would think. But who knows? I'm crazy. I'm just a crazy conspiracy theorist, so I'll shut up. People listen to him to laugh, says Steve. I think so. That's what I get from the chat, for sure. I get that from the chat, yeah. And his level of projection is off the chart. And that's what I meant by comparing him to flat earthers. That's what flat earthers do. That's where they are with it too, yeah.
And everything else is inferentially justified from there, which of course that would be foundationalism.
Yeah, that's a type of foundationalism. I mean, I think you have to obviously have more than one foundation,
right?
But sure,
exactly. Yeah. Well, this is the standard criticism of a foundationalism that just tries to have like one foundational belief that's supposed to be like an incorrigible belief or something, which is
I differ.
How do you? Sorry, I didn't hear you there.
Oh yeah, that's the issue, the incorrigibility of a foundational belief. There's a lot of paperwork out there, or a lot of papers out there, which way to go. I don't think that there can be an incorrigible single belief that you can really make a coherent framework from. But I'm sure you've read Sosa's paper on the pyramid and the raft, the difference between epistemic justification for coherentism and foundationalism. And it's very good, don't get me wrong, it's very complicated. But I think when you start talking about those topics with TJump, you might as well be talking about quantum mechanics.
Well, surely, and it's not something I know a lot about. Like, if you start talking about like any of the intricacies of the different like types of coherentism, you're gonna lose me. Like, I don't know a lot about that. But what was just astounding to me is like there's a very standard kind of criticism when you talk about foundationalism, where there's just some very small, if it's just incorrigible beliefs at the bottom,
right,
and then everything is inferentially justified from there. The criticism is, well, there's only a very small set of beliefs that are like that. How are you possibly inferentially justifying the rest of your like worldview of justified beliefs from there?
Couldn't build one that way, I don't think. I mean, you could start with the properly basic belief, which I believe all of them are non-inferentially justified or unjustifiable, and I think they're non-dosastically unjustifiable. You can't do it either way. So you can start with the basic belief that reality exists, okay, which is an assumption. I would take that as a properly basic belief. But this goes into TJumps epistemology, and I would run it by Converse here, because Converse, I think, gave a really great summation of TJump's argument. I think he stalemaned him quite well. I was actually impressed. But the way I looked at TJump's argument was this: I'm going to take a word like atheism, which he agrees with Converse on the normative uses of the term, but I'm going to change it stipulatively to something completely irrelevant, like idealism, of some form of idealism, and say he's going to argue atheism is the position that everything is imaginary unless it can be demonstrated to be real. And if you don't accept that, we can't have a conversation. And if you don't want to accept it, you're strawmanning me. That's what he was doing. And what he did is he confused this. And this, again, I'm going to ask your opinion on this. He was confusing justificatory reasons to hold a belief with the actual belief disposition towards the proposition itself. So if you have the proposition, God exists, that is an ontological question or proposition. So if I say, I believe God exists, I'm making an evaluation of that proposition, and my disposition or epistemic status toward it is I believe it. I accept it. It's true, right? Nothing
you're
controversial
expressing a
about that.
propositional attitude.
That is my propositional attitude. Nobody would, I think, would balk at that, maybe TJump, but nobody would balk at that. But he's trying to say, well, the reasons why I hold a particular position is that I don't have enough reasons to believe something. Now, we can get into the details of that, where I think is vacuous. But that's a justificatory condition that has no relevancy to his actual disposition with respect to the proposition. He's mixing justification with ontology. And Steve, I think you caught this, if I'm not mistaken. Did you know?
Yeah, pretty much. Basically, he stated his form of atheism. He stated he's going to define atheism. He does not have any reason to believe that a God exists, but the problem is that's a true description of an agnostic. So how can you distinguish between atheism and agnosticism when you're going by that definition? It's no different from the lack theist, the lack belief definition.
They would be very, very similar. Yeah, I mean,
his form of atheism. You can do so by giving a really fucking weird definition of atheism. What he said, I have a quote written down, is agnostics say we don't know, atheists say imaginary until proven otherwise.
And both those are wrong. And by the way, if you disagree or agree with my assessment, let me know. Converse, you're awfully quiet, and ask yourself as well. But yeah, Isaac, there's a problem with what he said on there, because he's automatically trying to say that agnosticism is knowledge, which of course we all know by now. When we're talking about the ontology of God existing, knowledge has nothing to do with it. It is a belief disposition, not a knowledge disposition. So it is the position that you don't have a belief either way. So I think Steve's right. He is taking a agnostic-like position and just calling it atheism, and then saying this deals with idealism of some sort, some weird narrative idealism, like everything's imaginary unless it can be demonstrated to be true. How does that have to do with the ontology of God?
Yeah, well, here's the thing, man, and again, at the outset, I want to say this, okay, because I know there's a lot of people that don't like Tom. Tom was willing to have a conversation with me, so I just want to point that out, because, like I say, man, there are other people, and you already know, Steve, who that just say they want to have. It's not that they want to debate me; it's that they say I'm tired of talking to Christians, and that's all they do on their channel. Like that's what their channel is about. So,
I agree
with that aside, yeah, did you guys happen to catch? I actually research people before I debate them. So like, I want to like watch your videos and like find out everything I can, not to try and beat you, but so that we have a productive conversation and we understand each other. So, did you guys catch whenever he said, well, atheism's different than like morality, because morality has an objective meaning. And then I said, yeah, but you said in your debate with Drew that it didn't have an objective meaning and that it wasn't defined objectively. And then he had to explain all that back. And he's like, oh, what I meant by that was, and he had to explain it all. So the only thing you can do when somebody says, I'm going to make my own definition, we'll go by that, is try to hold them to consistency.
Right.
Like that's the only thing. So that's what I did. I kept showing, well, that's inconsistent with what you're doing here. So
I think exactly right. But he didn't. He wanted more than that. He was like, if you don't accept my definition, you're strawmanning me.
Right.
That's what
I
I'm
agree
saying,
with you.
right? And that's like, no. He's like, you have to accept my definition, kind of thing. We're like, no, you don't. But Adam says for $5. Converse Contender and Isaac did really well, but it is saying much. But it is saying much when TJump lost to Kent on Giants. I think it means it's not saying much when TJump lost to Kent Hovind on Giants.
Well,
I don't know the history there. That sounds
Maximilian,
hilarious.
one more thing. Maximilian,
It was. You should
50,
watch it.
Crohn's.
It's
And by the way,
excellent.
Maximilian, just throw it out there. On my Facebook and on my Twitter, he works at a bar in Sweden, and he was really doing the cocktail menu, and I'm very flattered that he got a hold of me, and he asked me what kind of alcohol I like. You know, I told him I like whiskey, and I do drink Maker's Mark. And he has a drink on the menu named after me called the McRae. It's Maker's Mark and sweet and sour and some other stuff. Blueberry looks really yum. We're gonna try it. So thank you very much for that. I'm beyond honored. TJump was getting on my nerve at some point. That kind of vagueness is disingenuous. It is 3:20, and now I'm wide awake from irritation.
Right. Well, this is the whole thing. Okay,
Cheers.
So there's so much I want to say without taking up the whole stream. So like, Steve, you made a point, and it was about okay. You can go. I could just explode on that topic. So you can go.
Oh,